All right, guys. Last presentation of the day. Well, first, I'd like to thank you all of you to attend this CappCon 2016. So, my name is Christophe Serafin, and I'm a software engineer at NuageNetworks. I've been working for Nuage for almost 2 years now, and I've been working with Cappuccino for almost 3 years. So what is interesting here is that I started using Cappuccino way before being hired by NuageNetworks, and I was at the beginning struggling with Cappuccino because of lack of sometimes documentation. It was hard to get the installation, and also I had some difficulties after a few months to get everything working and deploy properly. So my presentation will be about good practices that we have at NuageNetworks, and I will try to have a global overview of everything that we have done. If you have any question, please do not hesitate. So to sum up my presentation, I will speak about the structure and the organization of a big application. So it's always a good way to think how to architecture your application. We'll speak about the Git submodules and see how it's very useful for libraries. I will have a quick step with the Cappuccino environment, except to go a little bit deeper with what we said this morning. I will also have, we said this morning that we have a lot of zip files. I will speak a little bit more in detail how we organize them and what we have done to try to avoid loading all the zip files. And finally, I will go with the compile and deploy part of the application to present Cappuccino toolchain. And it's not in my summary, but I also added a few tips that I added during this day. So structure and organization of a big application. It's very tempting at the beginning when you have a lot of features to try to create a very complex architecture. So many folders with one folder per feature. And to be honest, we tried this approach and it was not working. So first point, try to keep this hierarchy very simple. You have the models that defines all your objects and all your relations. You have the resources where you can put all your zip files, all your images, and all your medias. The view controllers are here, so you can put all your view controllers, everything. I will show you some example. The libraries, I will go deeper later in my presentation, but it will be for all the libraries, external libraries, I mean. And the frameworks, you already know that one because you have already done the capgen command to generate your project. So you know that it's either a copy or symlink of your cap build. If you really want to create some new folders in this hierarchy, try to think as a generic folders. The best example here is the abstract object. You want to inherit from an object and another. Try to put all those abstract objects in an abstract folder. It looks very simple when I say this, but in terms of, if you go back to the models and view controllers, you can have abstract models and you can have abstract view controllers. So you can easily imagine to have an abstract folder within the models folder and an abstract folder within the view controllers folder. At NuageNetworks, we also have data views. You heard about this one this morning when Antoine was presenting his demo. Data views are a small CP view that enables an object to be displayed on a particular part of the UI. So we will show how we organize the data views. The associators is another generic object that we created at NuageNetworks. It's a simple way to associate, to modulate a many-to-one or one-to-many relation. So it's a simple way to associate one object to another in terms of widget, of course. So here's a very small capture screenshot of a very basic file structure. So you can see that we have the associators and the data views. Docker, I won't speak about this one because it's really Docker related. Libraries, models, resources, transformers, and view controllers. The only one that I have not spoke about is the transformers. It's actually all the specific transformers to our solution, I mean Cappuccino transformers. So, because you are really nice, I won't show you this here. I will show you the VSD source code. So let's go to this thing here. Here is the VSD. So it's exactly the same. You have the associators, the data views, Docker, externals, libraries, models, and everything. And if you take a look here at the models, we have a lot of models, okay? And because we have a very, we don't have a complex hierarchy, we are using an editor that will very easily allow us to find an object. Let me show you an example. In the VSD, we have an object that is named the patnat pool, okay? We know that we have a models that is the patnat pool, so with the simple command T, I can easily go to nu, because that's in our convention, we know that nu stands for nuage, so we are looking for a specific file about nuage. Then we can do this, patnat. It's going to do a fuzzy search on all the files of the project. And so here is the selection that I have. The first one, by chance, is the one that I'm looking for. So I just tap enter and I'm on this file. So I don't have to go over all the hierarchy files. I just type command T and I can find easily my file. I can do that because I have a very, very specific naming convention. So for instance, at NuageNetworks, we have on the right side of all the UI, we have what we call an editor, okay? This editor enables you to add some more information on a specific object. For instance, also still related to the patnat pool, we have an editor that enables us to associate multiple patnat pools to a specific object. So to do that, I'm going to search for always the Nuage convention, an associated, first it's an editor, then an associated patnat pool. And here is my object. So without having a very complex structure, I can easily find and look for all my objects and files only because I have a good naming convention. And here is my editor. Okay. So, yeah, I'm sorry, go back here. What I'd like to show you is that each folder has a specific file. Here, I would like to show you the NU models. And actually, NU models is a file that is within the NU models folder and actually has all the imports of all the models. As you may know, in the app controller, when you want to deal with the patnat pool object, you will have to import it. To avoid this, you don't want to do all these models, all the imports for all these models. So you will have only one file that gather all the imports, and you will import only this one. So, for instance, in the app controller, so we have here all the import. You will see this one, import models/models.g. And with this single line, you will import all the models one time. I don't know if you are very familiar with this, but it's actually the same approach as a library. You have multiple objects. All those objects, you put them in a single file, and you import this file. You have a complete example of the, I mean this one, not the VSD, but this one on a GitHub. So it's based on the presentation made by Antoine this morning. So if you want to take a look, you're welcome. I was speaking about libraries, and it's actually a really, really good behavior to use libraries in your Cappuccino project. At NuageNetworks, we have several libraries. You might have heard of some of them. Bamboo. Bamboo is a library that gives all your models the capabilities to make REST calls. Cappuccino, of course, you know that one. We have a specific fork of Cappuccino at NuageNetworks, and we are still improving it. NuFlat is actually our flat theme. It's where you can find all our colors that we are using. NuKit, you already heard about it because it's the library that helps us to create all those interfaces. And TNKit is it's an external library. It helps us some table view and TN table view. So it has basic function. But libraries is a good way to improve reusability in your project, but also I'm pretty sure that once you will have one project, you will have multiple projects. And one example here is NuKit. We released this morning NuKit because it was good and easy to provide this library because it was generic and it can definitely be interesting for some of you. Use the libraries as submodules. I will show you why on the next slide. Submodules in your project is actually represented as a commit hash in GitHub. So I just made this git status on our VSD solution, and on the library within the library NuKit, I had something change. Okay, and as you can see on this slide, it just said that it doesn't tell me what has changed. It's just saying me that in NuKit there is something that has changed. The content has been modified, but that's all. It enables you with this commit hash enables you to link your code to a specific branch of a specific library. For instance, imagine that you have a big product. You have a release that you already sold to your client, and you have the master product, the one that you're working on. The master is linked to Bamboo with the specific hashtag 48D1E82 on a specific branch of Cappuccino and NuKit. And as you can see on this slide, the Cappuccino version has not changed from the master to the release, but Bamboo and NuKit has been updated. Some fixes, some improvements, but you have a specific version. This is how we deal with the versioning at NuageNetworks. We have the master, which is the top of the age, and we have different release versions that are made each time we want to provide a release to a client. If you have multiple branches with multiple Cappuccino installation, it's easy to understand that it can be very, very handy to have a dedicated environment for each branch. So it means that for our release branch, we have a specific version of Cappuccino or a specific version of NuKit. And for the master, it's going to be another one. It works exactly the same as virtual env, so it means that you will have to activate and deactivate the environment. And the good thing is that CappEnv, the command line, is already installed with Cappuccino. So as soon as you have Cappuccino installed, you can use that one. Very basic. Just make your folders at the root level. So for instance, we use CappEnv and environments. Then you have to create the two environments, cap-of-p, master and release. It will make two folders. And as soon as you will do this, the source bin activate within your master, it will change your cap build path. It means that every time you will have to run Jake, for instance, it will look in the cap-of environment master. When you have to switch, you can deactivate and activate the release, and you will get all the tools from Cappuccino and for the external libraries within the release environment. This is what I think it was Alexander that showed us this morning, the CappEnv. At Nuage, we script this, so it's very Nuage oriented, but you can do that. The good thing is that you can, every time you switch from a branch using the git checkout, you can switch the environment automatically. So we call this the auto CappEnv. So this is an example. When you do a git checkout release, it will automatically switch to the release branch, meaning it will get the libraries that are for the release version. When you go back to the master, it will switch to the master library, the version of the libraries for the master. So it's really handy to manipulate this. And the good thing is that you don't have to recompile everything using the Jake debug and Jake release. All the builds are already stored in the environment. Zip files. So zip files. So in this resources folder, you will have all the PNG files also, but you have all the zip files, and you can see we have a lot of them. Okay, so mainly images here, but here are zips. So in order to reduce the amount of code to be loaded for the application, we found that some of the data views are using in multiple places in the product. So we wanted a way to avoid loading one zip per data view. And to do that, we gathered all the views within one single zip file that we called shared views. Here is a screen capture of the shared views of the VSD. It's actually a very small part. We have, within this zip file, we have 150 zips. I mean views. So it means that today, when this morning we said we had 175 zips, actually we could have doubled this number if we wouldn't have done that. And it's actually very, very simple. We were talking about the NuKit this morning, and the NU module. The NU module, we have this capability to register a data view for a specific kind of class, kind of model. So we decided to create the data view loader, which is basically a CP view controller. That is the owner of the shared view. And within the shared view, we declared all the CP views that we wanted. So all the 150 CP views, all the data views. And for each data view, for instance, the SK task data view in my presentation, we will have an outlet within the data views loader to the specific view within the shared view controller. And the shared view controller will be loaded only once. And once it will be loaded, it will automatically loop on all the CP views, all the outlets, and do the register of the data view for the specific type of object. So this is very, very specific to Nuage, but this is a way you could use to reduce the number of files, the number of zip files you will have to load for your application. Compile and deploy. Cappuccino comes with a very nice tool chain. I heard some of the question during lunch. I will go over it right now. So first of all, we are developing in Objective-J file. Those files, we can't provide them like this when it's a product that you have to deliver. So we have first an Objective-J C transformation, which takes your Objective-J code and transform it into a JavaScript code. Then we grab Cappuccino is grabbing all the files and in a single one and is compiling it. It means the minification of the file. That's the flatten roll. So it takes all the Objective-J files and put the JavaScript files and put it into a single one and compile it. And then we have press. Press actually takes care of, it tried to reduce everything that is not used. So it means that Cappuccino is coming with the app kit, foundation, and everything. In your application, you may not use everything, and which is not necessary. Press will remove this part. Normally, at this point, you should have a decent amount of file and something that you can easily deploy. It looks very complicated like this, but there is a command, check deploy, which do that for you actually. Jake, you probably already used it when you did a Jake install and Jake debug and Jake release. I just wanted to make sure we all agreed on what it does. So Jake install actually builds and install Cappuccino within your Cap build. Debug and release actually build the debug version of the release version and place the generated files within the build folder. So you always have the build folder and you will find all those generated files in it. I will show you in the VSD, with the VSD. jclean actually just cleaned the build. It's basically a remove rm.rf. And the Jake deploy that we were talking about actually build the release version, but also launch all the toolchain that we discussed. And in the build directory, you will have then a deployment folder with the with a specific folder I will show you, which is suffixed by .ready, and this is the application that you can provide. So this is the application that you can put on behind your FTP or web server to be solved. Just quickly here. Okay, so here's, if I do a Jake release, I will have those files. If I do a Jake build, I will have, this is part of the release, sorry. And if I do a Jake deploy, I will have this. Architect, pressed, architect is the name of the application, and the ready. So you will see pressed and ready. And in the ready, those files here can be uploaded. So again, at NuageNetworks, we didn't want to deal with all those Jake commands, so we created what we call the build app script. And actually, this is part of the NU kit as well. So if you want to have a look, there is a link to the GitHub. You can have a look to this build app, and it basically provide tools that will internally call the Jake commands for you. So here, as you can see, we can build Cappuccino, NU kit, deploy the current project, build everything without Cappuccino, build and deploy everything with Cappuccino, and also because it's very handy sometimes just to do everything, we have the -L that builds all the libraries. So this is how we deploy, and actually the build app is used by our Jenkins to create the app. Few tips. This is more about organization and how to have a good code. At NuageNetworks, we use the Pragma Mark to have different sections in our code. So mainly we have the initialization, API, utilities, action, overrides, and delegates. They are always in the same order. It means that if I show you a .g file right now, you will have always this Pragma sections. I already talked about naming convention about the files. It's also a good behavior to have and respect naming convention. So I will show you some things. So let's go back to this one, for instance. Those variables here, I could have write just disable, enable, and inherited. But the thing is that if I need, and it will happen, if I need to have a refactor to rename those values because the feature has changed, because the guy don't want to just want to rename this information, I should be able to quickly find all the information within the entire application. So here is when I can see this particular variable. If I had just put enable, imagine everything in your JavaScript looking for enable. So it's really nice to prepare those renaming, because it will happen, definitely. And it will happen not only for those variables, but also for your outlets. Your outlets that you will have declared within your view controller and within your zip file. And trust me, you don't want to modify your zip file manually. You will have to, I already said it, but the class, the implementation, you will have to follow a naming convention, this one. The two next examples are permissions for object and change checkbox status. I could have write permission for patnat pool, for instance, but it's a generic method. If I want to create a new object, a new view controller, it will be very easy to have a look and see, oh, I already have a permission for an object in another view controller. Let's see how it should be structured. So it's very important to have those naming conventions and, for instance, those prefix, and to have generic names when necessary. It will definitely help you to rename when it will be necessary.
Just a simple question.
Sure.
Would this be a protocol then?
I'm sorry?
A protocol would be better even.
For what?
For the naming convention. If you have all these permissions for object, you should do it in the protocol.
Well, permission for object is actually it's kind of a protocol. It's a method that is provided by the NuKit. So it's how can I say that? It's an API that is provided by the NuKit. So you have to use that one. This method is really well declared in the NuKit. So all the view controllers that inherits from the NU module will have this method. Another good tips which I particularly like is the condition. It's very tempting to see a button country, for instance, set hidden with a 32 characters behind, and at the end you don't really know if it's true or false or whatever. So it's really nice to have the information within a variable. It's very clear. It's easily debuggable. You just have to put a debugger breakpoint, and you will see if it's true or false. So when you have, not every time, but when you have big conditions to see if it's true or false, don't hesitate to create a variable. Okay. Delegate methods. You are certainly familiar with this if you are using the CP table view, but it's also true when you are developing your own libraries. For instance, remember this morning when we click on the plus button, we had this popover, the CP popover that pops up. Before the popover is actually displayed, we always have the delegate method model context will manage object. And when the popover close out, we always have the did manage object. It looks very simple to do, but it gives you a lot of flexibility to do something. Imagine that you want to show, I can tell you. Okay, imagine that you want to use this popover for creating and editing an object. But when editing the object, you don't want to, or you want to disable a checkbox. Okay, it's really easy to override this will manage object, check if the object has an ID, and if it has an ID, you just need to enable or disable the checkbox. So it gives you flexibility in your code just by adding those delegate methods. Use user-defined runtime attributes. So that is really nice to have. When you have to declare all those outlets, it can be sometimes painful. So at Nuage, we had this tag. You saw it this morning. This tag value. So for instance, on the right side of the slide, you can see that I think it was a CP text field. It will represent the gateway attribute of the current object that is selected. And also, it gives the CP text field the information that it is required. And also, it's not a CP text field, it's apparently a network text field. It gives you the information if we need to have an IP with a mask or without a mask. So by defining those attributes, you can modify the behavior of your control. Another tip is to optimize your media. It's really tempting to just throw all the PNG like this in your resource folder. I'm not sure if you noticed, but all the products that you have seen today, they are all using a flat theme. It's because it's very trendy, first, but it's also because Aristo and Aristo 2 are sometimes heavy to load, and using a flat theme can definitely help you to reduce the amount of theme. So this is really helpful. And also we are using Image Optim to compress all the images. So before pushing an image, we just throw it in Image Optim. It will do all the work for us, and it will be reduced by sometimes 40%. Avoid xib conflicts. You don't want to have this. Xib conflicts, even if it gets better because now xibs are XML files. When two guys are working on the same xib and adding two different views, Xcode is adding an identifier for each CP view. But you can easily imagine that two guys that are working at the same time can have the same identifier of the CP view. And then it gets messy, and you don't want to have this. So we didn't have found the correct way to fix this, but just by saying, okay, I will work on this one, don't touch it for now, it did the job for now. but you don't. But you definitely want to try to avoid those conflicts. A lot of files are auto-generated in Cappuccino. The frameworks, of course, but also the zip files. Don't push your zip files on GitHub. It doesn't make sense, and of course, it's a new conflict that you can avoid. So if you can imagine, if it's a mess to have conflicts in a zip file, you can imagine it's twice a mess to have a conflict in a zip file. So remove that and you just git in your them. All the build also. Small tip, but really helpful. Never write this one. Import appkit/appkit. It will actually load everything and your application will get overloaded. And that's all the tips that I get today. If I found another one, I will definitely add it. But the community is not big enough. I think you have seen all the guys today, and they're really nice people, and they're really helpful. So please don't hesitate to join us on Gitter and ask your answer. You will definitely be helped there. We are not really active on Stack Overflow like we could be, but we have a Cappuccino Google group, so we can also send us some email there. And we have the Cappuccino news also, which when we try to have all the news updated, and sometimes when updating from one Cappuccino version to another, it can be a little bit tricky to understand what's going on. So that's why we are doing all the news. Of course, if you do not understand it, go back to the first step and come back on Gitter. Thank you for your attention. All right, I'm pretty sure that you will have a lot of questions, so I'm here.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Will the application run faster if it is flattened and pressed, or will it only load faster?
If the application is faster when it has been pressed and flattened, yes, of course, because you will have the amount of, the size of the files will.
It will load faster, but will it run faster there?
No, it won't change this. It will be only for the loading. It will reduce the number of files and the size of the files. Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand why you shouldn't write appkit.j, because it's already in application.j. It's auto-generated. Is that enough?
Well, when you do that, you will load all the appkits, all the appkit label.
So
yep.
Should I delete it from the app controller.j file?
Yes. Yes.
Really? Thank you. That's the way then I suggest you delete it.
That was the tip of the day.
Yeah, people doesn't understand.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So I think it is the same question, but I'm not quite sure. If I'm willing to live with a long load time while I'm developing, but then do a Jake deploy and press it, will that do the same as if I'd been?
No, because you're going to trick, you most likely will trick press as well into thinking, and flatten into thinking that you are using load files, because it's basically a big regex. It's going to check for, what are you actually importing in your app code versus what are you putting in your foundation code. And, it'll see that, well, hey, it's pulling all of that in, so you are using all of that.
Thank you.
Sorry for that.
No. That was a good answer.
What's slide of the flat theme? The tips about the flat theme and image.
Image Optim. Sure, this one.
That image Optim, where does it come from? Is that included in Cappuccino?
No, it's not. No, it's a separated tool.
Third party installed
Yeah, it's a small software that you can easily install. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you can find another one, but this is the one we are using at NuageNetworks. All clear? Yeah.
Where did you get all coding conventions from? Did you just by experiment?
I think it was experience. When I joined NuageNetworks 2 years ago, Antoine and Alex were already working on it for almost 2 years, and
We have so many issues with the refactoring that when you want to rename something and we don't have those refactoring fancy tools that they have.
mhm.
We wanted to be sure that it was very easy to do like a search and replace in the base, which was getting pretty good. That's some kind of strong naming convention.
Yeah, and it's actually very funny because Tim was talking about the different steps in your application. You have to rewrite some things to do it differently, and this is very helpful to have a really good naming convention because it will definitely happen.
For,
Go ahead.
for method names and everything, you also try to have some conventions.
Yeah, mostly yes. But in general, we try to have a very comprehensive method because sometimes, I'm sure it makes sense right now, but sometimes when you're writing your code, the name of the method doesn't say what the method is actually doing. So we try to first have something that means. We try to have a name that means something, and then we try to find a generic way to that can be applied to all the objects that we have. But we don't have a specific Objective J and Objective C does give you some tips about the naming, of course. Yes.
Maybe a more general question. I'm used to using program marks in Objective-C and within Xcode. I use TextMate as an editor for Cappuccino because of the colour syntax, but that doesn't seem to support program marks. My general question is
I've been using yeah, it works. Actually, today.
No, you can get all the methods. So putting in a program mark to separate it.
And so you can.
You actually get a little menu that lets you select the program you want to jump to.
Yeah.
You don't get that in text.
But to be honest, we were using TextMate for the last 4 years, so.
TextMate 2?
Yeah.
There we go. I'm pretty sure it's because that's why we started using that.
With the coffee, you have to share.
Yeah.
I just learned today that in Xcode you can declare the J files as Objective-C, and then suddenly syntax calling comes up and auto-completion comes up, and I never knew that. So it's really easy.
This is
alone made the trip.
this is why we are here today, to share all those tips. All right. I guess everything's clear. Thank you.